Hello, I'm Chris Williams from Read Comics They're Bad For You, the name of my YouTube channel. Or if you're watching this on BitChute, the name of my BitChute channel is Comic Freak. See these reviews for Greedfall? They're all in the green and they give favorable reviews to Greedfall. Just remember these reviews because we're going to be looking at an article from Kotaku about one writer who just seems to have a problem with Greedfall and the world it was presented in. And the fact that, well, Greedfall was a fun game. Heather Alexandria just has a problem with Greedfall being a good game, period. Her article, 10 hours in Greedfall's detailed role-playing can't make up for its unpleasant setting. As we get into this article, you're going to see what an SJW really thinks about fun. So let's get into it. I have not enjoyed playing Greedfall, the latest role-playing game by Spiders. That's not because it is a poor experience in terms of how it plays. Greedfall offers a BioWare-esque adventure with branching quests, companion characters, and exploration. Greedfall frustrates me because it's a game of half measures. In the nearly 10 hours that I have played it so far, it fails to pull its desperate threads into a cohesive whole. Greedfall is set in a fictional universe that appears to be modeled after 17th century Europe and America, with some Celtic influences as well. There are nobles and sailors, newly funded colonies, and dialogue trees full of characters engaging in courtly intrigue. You play as D. Sadat, the newly appointed diplomat of a merchant's guild. Alongside your cousin, a jovial but clueless governor, you sail across the sea to the land of Tree Fadir in the hopes of locating a cure to a plague that is ravaging the old world. When you arrive on T4D, you learn about a burgeoning conflict between multiple factions, a confederation funded by a progressive researchers and naturalists, a zealous church, and the local native population. In addition to searching for a cure, your job as a diplomat is to liaise with these factions and resolve disputes. Along the way, you'll have to option for plenty of companion romances, arena battles, boss fights with magical creatures, persuasion checks, and complicated quest lines. So far, so good. We haven't seen anything untoward from this writer reviewing this game, but believe me, it gets bad pretty soon. In its best moments, Greedfall provides a solid mixture of role-playing elements and combat quests, offer a variety of solutions based upon the items you have and the skills in which you've invested. High charisma makes it easy to charm your way out of tricky situations, while points in the intuition trait will unlock unique dialogue that leads to alternate solutions. With points in the science trait, you can make keen medical deductions or else craft potions that can be used in quest lines and on the battlefield. She continues to do well, doesn't she? And I'm really enjoying her description of this game. It sounds like a fun game, doesn't it? In an early quest, my master-at-arms, Kurt, asked me to doctor the contents of a shipping manifest so that important cargo could be smuggled onto a ship. This meant entering territory belonging to the Nats, a sailors' guild whose members joined at a young age, Jedi style. Intruding into their territory would draw their ire and cause me to lose precious reputation points with them. To avoid conflict, I had numerous options at my disposal. I could simply sneak through their compound if I wanted to. Alternately, I could locate one of their uniforms to explore without worry. I could use my science skill, if I had it, to brew a sleeping potion to knock them out after a round of drinks. Greedfall delights in offering multiple solutions to quests, be it dialogue options or other creative avenues. You are a diplomat first and fighter second, and there's plenty of ways to avoid combat. Even in the hairiest situations, it makes questing a genuinely enjoyable process, no matter where you drop your skill points. Combat is less enjoyable, but has a certain degree of clumsy panache. Terre Ferdie is packed with magical creatures that will attack you, and there are also plenty of ways to end up on a faction's wrong side. End up having to face them. Combat is often avoidable, but in the rare moments that you're forced to take a stand, the fighting works fine, even if your companions repeat the same combat barks over and over and over again. This is just making me really want to play Greedfall, doesn't it, folks? And I can't wait to play this game. It looks good, but you're going to see this writer has a problem with being able to play and enjoy a good, fun game. You can fight with sabers or heavy weapons like larger swords and hammers. You can also use guns or specialize in magic. Fighting usually plays out like other action RPGs such as The Witcher 3 or Wild Hunt. You dodge, you attack, you maybe use a magic spell to trap an enemy in stasis. If the fight's moving too fast for you, you're able to pause the game and select your next action in an impromptu, turn-based manner that makes it easier to plan your next move or micromanage teammates. It's a good compromise that smooths over some of the jankiness found in Greedfall's slightly stiff combat animations. All she talks about are the good points in this game. It makes me wonder what could possibly be wrong with it, huh? If this all sounds fine, that's because it is in isolation, judged only on the questing and combat. Greedfall is a remarkably playable bit of pulp, whether it's helping my companion solve the murder of a friend, outsmarting religious inquisitors, or fighting massive beasts. Everything works fine, but it's all done in the service of a setting and narrative that is in the early moments confused. I'm just going to go with the flow and say this reviewer is doing a good job, but then we come to this part of the article. There's no polite way of saying it. Greedfall is kind of effed up. Wrapping yourself in the pageantry of the 18th century means recreating the iconography of colonial expansion and native slaughter. It means emulating a time when supposedly great men failed to do what was morally right, opting instead to do what was politically expedient. To merely call this a tension of Greedfall does it a disservice. It's not just a momentary tension, it's the entire game. The visual language at play in this game harkens back to some vile stuff. That isn't to say that no art could use a setting like this, but it needs to be used with an awareness of what this setting actually means. Greedfall doesn't demonstrate that level of care at the moment. It's just set dressing. The magical new world is mostly a playground for the player, not a means to examine complex issues. Greedfall wears a costume, perhaps not ignorant to what the costume means, but seemingly unwilling to do anything too powerful with it. It's a game, and just because it has some political leanings to it that were just to give it flavor about how the 18th century was a harsh place and that it was not a good place to live, does not mean it needs to be some ideologue's playground instead of a player's playground to have fun in. Continuing, in the time I've played Greedfall, it's clear that while I can alternate factions, sometimes gain favor with my companions for doing so, there's a great deal of an advantage in placating all parties and maintaining the status quo on Tre Fredi. Don't rock the boat. Make sure to bow before the racist cardinal, even if you want to stab them in the neck. Dedicate yourself to a milquetoast middle path that keeps peace but transforms nothing. Greedfall often plays lip service to the hypocrisies of its various factions. By what right does that inquisitor have to call anyone a barbarian, as he gleefully kills any native that fails to convert to his religion? But in my first 10 hours of playing, I've yet to see these moments of awareness coalesce into anything actionable. I could butt heads with the said racist church officials and state my disbelief in his God, but I couldn't intercede as he choked a sinner to death. There's been very little opportunities to push back. You might prevent a tragedy here or there, but so long as the game pushes the player accents to formality and political decency, there's no room for any transformative action. I'm hoping this changes in the later segments of the game. The fact that Greedfall tosses occasional scorn against colonial powers and dogmatism only makes it more frustrating that this is a game that appears to be about upholding the status quo, not enacting systematic change. These brief moments feel trite, as Greedfall is uncomfortable with itself. Can I do anything about these injustices? Can I tear down the system that perpetrates them? For the moment, the answer seems to be no. That Greedfall has thus far limited reactions to the world around me and funneled me towards the diplomatic path doesn't feel like a thoughtful merger of systems and themes like what was found in 2016's Tyranny. It feels like an unintended side effect of an underexplored setting and limited dialogue trees. I would love to be proven wrong. The first reason you're wrong, Alexandria, it sounds like this game has a certain way you're supposed to play it. Secondly, I don't really think that people want to make a game where you emulate making a communist utopia in the 18th century. Let's all get back to the article, shall we? I ask, what is Greedfall saying? What messages does it want to communicate to me? What themes are on display? I have no answer to these questions. And if Greedfall does, it's not been kind enough to reveal them yet. It was never going to do that anyway. My cynical brain says, but if part of my job is to call on games to do better, then I also need to open myself up to the possibility that even fraught games may have the potential to achieve clarity. I could find that after all this lengthy preamble, Greedfall musters the strength to use its setting as more than window dressing, but based on what I've played so far, I'm not getting my hopes up. You know what? Yes, window dressing, because most likely the ones who are developing this game wanted it to be fun, not some SJW ideologue propaganda piece that you seem to think all games should be. Alexandria, your job is to tell games to do better, not to tell them how to make those games. You're supposed to say to make them fun and enjoyable for all. Some players may not be bothered by all this. For those players, what will matter is whether the combat is decent. It mostly is. What may also matter is whether the roleplay offers options for solving quests. It does. Although you can probably just get by with high charisma, that Greedfall is a decent RPG will be enough for some. For me, it isn't, right? Not right now. I see from time to time slivers of what Greedfall might be, and I trudge along in what feels like a misguided pipe dream that it will deliver anything deeper than what I've seen so far. I don't dislike the raw moment-to-moment experience of Greedfall. It scratches a particular itch that I've been eager to scratch in the absence of Dragon Age. If you're eager for an RPG of that form, Greedfall will oblige, and you'll likely have a good time. Regardless of my misgivings, I admit to a horrible curiosity in what might come next, but those misgivings are powerful and can't be ignored. Greedfall might manage to capture some of what made BioWare's adventures great, but feels aimless. It has so far not managed to speak and say anything worthwhile, even as it offers meager acknowledgement that something isn't quite right with its world. That lack of conviction so far is a black mark that I cannot get over, and which leaves the frustration that overshadows anything else. Hopefully that will change as I continue to be an ideologue who doesn't enjoy any games at all because I have no life. This woman, this Alexandria, this writer at Kotaku has no idea how to play games. Games are meant to be fun, not to be propaganda. Buy Greedfall. Prove to her that a good game doesn't need to be selling you it doesn't need to be some sort of propaganda piece to sell you anything. It just has to be a fun, escapist game. Now, if you like this video, subscribe. Make sure you're still subscribed because YouTube is going around unsubscribing people, so make sure you are still subscribed. If you're watching my videos but you have not subscribed, please subscribe to me. Subscribe to me at YouTube on Read Comics They're Bad For You, the name of my YouTube channel. Then go over to BitChute and subscribe to my BitChute channel, Comic Freak. Hit that bell for notifications, hit that like button, and leave some comments down below. And could you please share this video, share it on Twitter, and share it on YouTube, because YouTube is also not promoting their creators' videos anymore. So it could really help me if you could please share this video. And keep checking back as I plug my independent comic book, Scumdogs. Keep checking back for more news about it. I'm Chris Williams, and I'll be back again tomorrow with another video or review.